Hello guys, welcome to this course about Dart for future development in Flutter. So in this first course, I would like to show you what are variables itself. If you don't know what is a variable, I will leave below in the description a link for you guys. If you know what is a variable, then all that explanation is totally redundant. So I would like to skip it for those who already has some knowledge about programming itself. What is a variable? What is a function? These things we can actually see again and again in so many different videos in YouTube, not only YouTube, in different courses. So I would like to go straight away what is Dart, how to use Dart, and basically how to manipulate that use different types of data types in Dart itself. Okay, so let's start with the development. If many of you have any all these videos doesn't make sense, please let me know in the comments below, and I will create a video only for you guys. Okay, at the moment let's focus on what is what type of variables we have in Dart, how to use them, how to manipulate them, how to play with them, which is kind of exciting thing. As you can see in this video, we will see what is a string, what is what is number, how to create number, how to create strings, booleans, generic variables, arrays, and maps. Okay, so I would like to make everything together. Below I will leave the timestamp for all the parts, so in case you would like to skip to the next one, or you would like to actually revisit again one of them. So yeah, instead of different videos, we can create all together, and yeah, let's go ahead with that. Okay, so the first type of variable we will see in Dart is a string. Very simple strings. If you created strings before, or if you have experience with I don't know, with Java, for example, this is exactly the same. So in strings itself, the first thing we can do is create a string. We can actually declare a string, and after the string we just put name, and in this case name is I will assign to David. Remember one thing, Dart requires a semicolon. As you can see, I didn't add a semicolon, and on the top right corner we can see how it actually is complaining. It's expecting to find a semicolon. So remember, in Dart, semicolon is mandatory, at least at the moment. So semicolon at the end, and now this error gone, and yeah, so remember the semicolon is very, very important. So now we can actually print, if we like to display something on the console, which is going to be here on the console itself, we can actually use print. So in this case, print is if we put name, another semicolon at the end, and then we run it. We can see actually after run it how we can actually display David. So name is a string David. Okay, so remember one thing, just in case you don't know or you have no experience and you are watching this video, strings, which is words, etc., are you need to put colon stop, and colons. All right, so now we jump into the next thing. So remember, one of the things is this variable is mutable. What means mutable? It can be reassigned a different value. Okay, so we put name equals, and this put, I don't know, say John, for example, or John. John. Okay, so now if we put print, and in this case print, and they put name, semicolon at the end, we can actually see how I say John itself. Okay, so now name is John. Why first is David and the second is John? But basically it's because we create the string variable on top. Okay, so we create the variable on top, and they say, okay, so this name is David, and now after we print it in the console, and then after we reassign it the name John. What happened with John? And we actually printed, so it's David first and then after John. So what happened with the David itself? So the David value, it had been lost. So just remember, when you reassign different value, another value to that variable, the previous value is completely gone. So it's out of the memory, it doesn't remember it anymore. So you cannot come back to that specific value. Okay, so just remember that, and be very careful when you reassign different values to the strings. The previous value will go completely. So this is a variable itself, and this is string, and one thing we can do is actually remove this part, and then we can actually see how we can actually concatenate different strings. So in this case we create another string, sorry, string, and now the string is going to be last name. Okay, and in the string last name we put Kruth, for example, and we put semicolon. You know how we can actually concatenate this, you know, David with Kruth itself. If we actually put it here on after, it will be confused. You know, it will say, you know, it's the name last name is not there. If we actually separate it, it's gonna have the same issue. We'll say an error. Why? Because we actually can only, you know, show one specific variable. Okay, we can actually put the two variables in, you know, there. So how we can fix this issue? This issue can be fixed with the plus sign. So if we put the plus sign, you know, that's it. So now name and last name is gonna be concatenate, and when we run it, we will see how we can actually see David Cruz. So it's David Cruz all together in one string. You know why? Because we actually put this plus sign in the middle. But in this specific scenario, there is a big problem. The problem is David Cruz appears with no space, and it looks like you say David Cruz all together, and it's one word, and we know it is not. You know, there are two different words. So how we can actually fix this small thing? So something very simple. You can actually you know, think of the doctor just on your own, which is just create one space in the middle. Cool. So now we run this, and we actually, what happened? There was one space in the middle. Why? Because we put name, and then we concatenate with this another string. This string has no letters, but it has one empty space in the middle, and then we can actually display this. You know, you can actually display this last name. So name, space, and last name. But this one, for this specific example, it could be okay, but sometimes, you know, it's not cleaner. It's not clean enough. And if you want to concatenate different strings, it's plus sign, plus sign, plus sign, plus sign, and it's different. And you need to add, you know, this kind of a small hack, which is add a space in the middle. So, how we can actually make this string more readable for humans? So basically, what we can do is just create one string, empty string here, and then put name and last name. Okay. So in this case, when we actually run it, you know, what we'll see. So we will say name and last name, which is not what we want to. What we want is this name is David, and this one's gonna be Cruz. But in this case, this name is not this name. Okay, this name is a totally different string. It's like this David, and this last name is like, you know, it's like a Cruz, but it's just a different string altogether. Is one string. So how we can actually display David and Cruz? So in this case, at the beginning of this of the value itself, we just plus a plus dollar sign. What happened now? Okay, so this, you know, this dollar sign at the beginning. Okay, this dollar sign at the beginning is you know, it says, okay, so the next part is gonna be a variable. Okay, so if we run this one now, we will see how say David and last name. Okay, why? Because we actually say, okay, you know, do not. This is not a part of the string. This is a value. You need to get it from a different value, a different variable. And now here we can actually put another dollar sign. And if we put a dollar sign there and we run it, we actually can see how say David Cruz. Okay, so now we say exactly the same thing. We see exactly the same thing with the space in the middle, and this is how we can actually create, you know, concatenations of different strings and more cleaner for humans. This one. So we can actually say, if we can actually put another dollar sign and then put a name itself, we just run it, and we can actually see how, again, you know, it's say David Cruz David. Okay, here on top. Cool. So what happened itself, you know, when we don't know exactly the value before. Okay, so let's say, you know, you want to say, you know, my age itself, you know, and I have, you know, and I have, yeah, see, okay, years old. Okay, so you see, you know, this say years is a value, but you know, if we run it, yeah, years has no value, you know, years has no value. So how we can actually put here my age? We can, you know, to put here my age itself, we can actually create another string here and say name, and there is age itself. Okay, So in this case, the age is gonna be let's say is 38. Okay, 38. So now we have here the age, and we put here the age, and we run it, and you know, everything's gonna be fine. You're 38 years old. Okay, sorry, it's gonna be years old itself. But sometimes we don't know exactly, you know, how, you know, our age, and the, you know, the age is gonna change. It depends on when the application is running and all this kind of stuff. So how we can actually change this? Okay, so we can actually remove this one and fix it. So, you know, to add this one, we can actually make the calculation before. We will calculate the current year with the year of my birth. So we can actually see how it will make the calculation and add the result. So in this case, we remove this and we add these curly brackets. You know, these curly brackets, now we will see 2022 minus 1983. Okay. So, you know, we are in the 2022, 1983, okay, and then we run it. What's gonna happen here in this specific thing? Okay, so what will happen is now 39, yeah, because, you know, the month of my birth is in October, but yeah, so you know, I'm 38 at the moment, but it's gonna be 39. What happened here itself? Okay, so he actually get this value, put it there. This get another value, they put it there, but for the age itself, he actually make the calculation. So he gets and say, okay, 2022 minus 1983 is 39. Okay, so this and then he actually add this one as a string inside of this string and say, okay, 39 years old. Okay, the calculation, if we can actually change this one, and I don't know, put 81, for example, he will make the calculation again, and he will say, okay, I have 41 years old. Okay, so it doesn't compare them, it doesn't compare the month, it doesn't compare anything. Sorry, it doesn't compare the month, it doesn't compare anything, and yeah, basically is make the calculation, put it inside. And you know, besides this one, Dart offer us different extensions. We can actually play with strings, which is basically, if we put string, you know, let's say print, for example, okay, and then put name, name, and then dot is, you know, you put a dot at the end, and then actually say, you know, how many things we can actually play with our string. Like, for example, is empty, is not empty. This one will return as a Boolean, which is basically, we will see it after, but this will return as, you know, true or false. You know, if it's, this one is, you know, is this string empty? If it's, you know, if it's empty, we'll say yes, it's true. If it's not empty, we'll say false, and, you know, vice versa. And also we can actually display the length. You know, the length, it will display how many characters that specific thing will have. In this case, I did put a semicolon, as we say, we actually say it at the beginning, so we need to put always semicolon. If you know, we will get an error. So we can actually see now how the name and length is 5. Why? Because it's David. David is have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the length of my string. Okay, if we can actually put more, you know, random characters, even the spaces, this one, even the space, it will detect it as a specifically a character. Okay, spaces are characters also. So we can actually run it, and now we can see how we put there, you know, all these numbers, and it says it's 35. Okay, so all this and all together, I have no doubt, is 35. So let's come back, and now let's see the numbers. Numbers in Dart, we can declare it as int. Okay, int belongs to integer. Okay, so an integer of, let's say, age is 38 itself. We put the semicolon, and we print the age. As we can see, as we see before, you know, the age itself is gonna be 38. So there is no complications on that. But if our number is with decimals, unfortunately, we cannot actually use int. We need to use a double. Okay, so in this case, we put double. Let's say h1, for example. Okay, so in this case, h1, and it's gonna be let's say 35.7, for example. All right, so now we run it. Okay, and what actually after we run it? Oh, so sorry. So I will say that print, let's say h1 itself. Okay, just one thing. I'm gonna actually comment this part because I don't want to see that all the time. And now we need to add this one. There is an error here because I didn't put the semicolon, and actually we can see it's 38.7. What happens if in the int we actually add 38.2, for example? You know, in this case it will return an error. The reason is it say, you know, the value is a type double and it's not a int anymore, you know, in this one. And here, for example, you know, if we actually put the double itself, sorry, let me just remove this part, you know, we can actually run it, and actually we can see how it display, you know, the double. Why, you know, why is this? Okay, because a double can contain, you know, double can contain a number itself. You know, number is a superclass. Number, for example, is a superclass of double. We will see this one later. Okay, so a double can contain also full numbers. Why is that? Because a full number could be also this 35.0. Okay, if we actually run this one 35.0, we will see how it doesn't display the 0.0. Why? Because it's a double this one. Okay, so what happened, you know, what happened now? So if we can actually also use numbers. So we don't know exactly if our numbers will be an int or it will be a double, but we can actually see before, you know, int and double is exactly the same, but 38 is not a double, and double, you know, double is, you can contain decimal. So number is also, you know, if we don't know exactly if it's gonna be an int or a double, it's safe actually to put num. Num itself is, you know, h2. We can actually put 20. Okay, we can actually put 20, and we put print itself and h2. Okay, so now we run this and we can actually see 20. Okay, 20 this one, but what happened if we put, you know, 23? Also it will work, because as we see before, you know, is a superclass of double, so we can actually see 23, etc. But what happened now if we can actually say h, and we change it to 30, for example, which is an integer? We run it again, and we run it as the h2, sorry. So what, we run it again, the h2, and we will see 30. Why? Because what we can see before, 30 is also a double, so it's 30.0 itself. Okay, in this specific thing, so he will be automatically added the 0.0. If it's 0.0, he will display nothing. If it's 0.1, for example, he will display the 0.1 in the end. Okay, so that is for numbers and doubles itself. And now we can actually play around on this one. So as you can see before, here, you know, we actually take over, you know, the you know, with the ages, you know, with the year itself, and we actually display the correct name. So as you can imagine, print, as you can imagine, we can actually use, you know, different things, like for example, you know, let's make it simple here, just to, you know, let's say, for example, num first, and num first is gonna be 5, and then num second, it will be let's say 7, for example. Okay, what happened? So if we put first minus second, we run it, and we can see, you know, it's -2. Why? Because 5 minus 7 is -2. Okay, in the opposite side, if we put second, and then first, first. Okay, then we run it, and then we can see is 2, which is +2 in this specific thing. Okay. Another thing we can do is do plus, 5 plus 7 will be 12. Very simple. We can actually add numbers, 12 there on top. The reason I just commented these 3 first lines, just to don't confuse. Actually, what we can do is multiply. Okay, so multiply 5 per 5 times 7 itself, and it's 35. Okay, and another thing we can actually take, is divide. What is 5 divided by 7? So you can actually see the 5 is 1.4. Another things we can do is put another thing we can do is so the remaining, for example, is a multiple star. So in this case, is number 2. So for example, if we put here 5 and 5, you know, for example, we can actually see it's 0. Why? Because, you know, 5 is multiple of 5, so it's, you know, 5, 1, 0. You know, there is no remaining. We can actually see, for example, is 6 and 2, for example. We can actually see it's 2. Sorry, if we put 2 and 6, okay, because it's different. I confused the order. In this case, it's 0. Why? Because, you know, 2 plus, you know, plus 2 is 6. So there is an extra. You know, there is no extra numbers there. Cool. So that is, you know, that's another thing we can actually do with numbers. You know, do any kind of multiplications. You know, divide. You know, plus, sign, you know, minus, everything, you know, we can actually do with Dart, which is very simple. Is practically in every single language, programming language, you can actually do that, which is not so exciting, but it's very useful, and you can actually you will actually use it a lot in your future development, which is this another thing. And the next one we will see is Booleans. Okay, Booleans. What happened with Booleans? Simple stuff. So with Booleans, what we can do, you know, Booleans itself is true or false stuff. Okay. So in this case, you know, is true or false. So basically, what we can do here is, like, for example, we can box, you know, to declare a bool is true. Okay, is true itself. So yeah, you know, it's true. For example, we can actually compare two numbers itself. So it's, for example, is 1 equals, you know, to do the equals, we can actually put the true equals itself. Is 1 equals to 1 itself, and then we print. And then put is true. Is true. Okay. So if we actually run this itself, we can actually see they say true. You know, 1 is equal to, you know, 1 is equal to 1, but is 1 equals to 0 itself. So we can actually see, you know, is false. You know, 1 is not equal to 0. We can actually do this one with variables. So let's say, you know, let's say bool in 1, and the 1 is, like, let's say is a 4. So okay, so with them, yeah, but for example with string, sorry, I put bool here at the beginning. Now let's put string, for example, say David. Okay, string to, let's say here David is, and David itself. Okay, and now we can actually say is 1 equals 2 itself. Okay, so now we can remove this one because it's not needed anymore. We can actually put that, put play, and that is true. David is equals to David. But what happened if we, instead of David, put it lowercase David? Okay, so we can actually run it now and say it's going to be false. Why? Because it is not the same. It's not the same. It's not the same David with a capital, you know, with the first in the capital case, then you know, with everything in lowercase. Okay, so you need to go always very careful with this one. And what happens if you want to compare it? If you want to say, you know, I want to see if this one is not equals to it's not equals to 2. So in this case, we just put 1 question mark. Sorry, the question mark is exclamation mark. Sorry. Okay, so now is 1 no equals to 2? Is this one correct? We run it, and we can actually see when we hit 1, 2, of course, you know, is true. You know, is 1 is not equals to 2. So we can actually compare in this one. Okay, so that is one thing. You can actually set the variables bool. You know, you can actually set the variables bool. You know, let's say 3, and you can put here, you know, true. Sorry, true. And the bool for false. Okay, So in this case, in this case, basically, it's like you actually set, true and false, and you are not comparing between two. It's true or false. This one, it could be useful if you need to, just to put like a flag to say, okay, if this one is correct, then you can just put true or false. But yeah, you can declare it Booleans with true or false like this. Okay, so that's everything. That's everything for Booleans itself. Generic. This is one of the things I would like to show you. For example, this one is kind of a generic kind of number, but generic itself, you can actually put a bar itself. Okay, so what happened with this one? Bar, body. Generic, for example. Okay, so bar generic. What is this? So generic can be David, for example. Okay, that we can see, for example, it will be perfect. We just print, we print, and what happened if we print is we put generic, and yeah, let me just comment this line and comment the other line itself. So generic itself, it can be a string, it can be a double. Generic now it's gonna be 34.6, and now it can be an int also. It can be an int also. It can be a Boolean. Generic is also a Boolean itself. So it can be anything you want. If you know exactly what kind of type you need to use, like for example, I wanted this variable is completely string, and if it's not string, I don't want it, then you can do it in this way. But if you don't know exactly which kind of variable you will use, or this one, it could be, I don't know, it could be a Boolean, or it could be a number, or it could be whatever you want to, then you need to make sure you can actually use variable. But yeah, you use with caution, okay? Because it can be confusing at some point in the, when you actually develop, when the application becomes bigger and bigger, it could be very complicated to maintain. You can actually use, but yeah, it's there. You can actually use it anything you want. What happened, but for example, now generic, okay? Now generic, it can be put also false, because before is a, so now it's a generic is true, it will change to false, and then they will print it. So we can actually see it prints is false. But for example, now this variable generic is a Boolean. I cannot put David. Why? We cannot put David because it's a it's a string and this is a Boolean. So once you assign your specific type, then it cannot be changed. Okay, so just be careful with that. So it's not because now it's true, tomorrow, now it's true, later on it's gonna be a Boolean, then it's gonna be a double. No, it's cannot be possible. Is that variable right now, because of the first assignment, is gonna be true. Okay. So be careful. Be careful with that on this one. So now arrays on this one. So now with the arrays itself. So how you can actually declare, how you can actually declare an array. An array can be displayed by using the word list. Okay, and this list basically is gonna be a list of strings itself, and there is names. And now where you can actually add here so many different values. Okay, in the here inside. So basically, you can actually put David, John. You can actually put here Robert. Okay, just to put some of them. And now for print, you can put names. And now put the semicolon. Let me just comment this one also, just to know, just to not to be confused. Raw compiling. Okay, what's the issue? Yeah, because of this one. Okay, so I just sort of remove it, and that's it. Just remember, the variable cannot be changed the type. So now we run it, and now we can see how it displays David, John, and Robert. But one of the issues here is even if you can see all the names, sometimes you would just want to pick up one specific value from these lists. Okay, so how you can actually change, how I can actually choose the second value. Okay, how can actually choose the third value? So in this case, to get a specific value from the names itself, we need to use this symbol. And for example, if we want to use the first value, it's going to be a 0. Why? Because numbers in programming start always with 0. Okay, so now we're going to pick up the first value, which is 0. Now we run it, and we will see how names become David. And now if we want to use John, then we put 1, we run it again, and we can actually see John is which is the second value, and we put the third value, and it will be an error itself. Why is going to be an error? Because it say, the index is out of range. There is no 3 values, it's 0, 1, 2. Okay, so as we see, we confuse there. So remember, start with 0, so the third value is a number 2. Okay, so that's in Apple 2. You see Robert, and everything is, pretty much, happy there. So what happens if we want to add that? What happens if we want to add a new value on this? What happens if we want to add, for example, a new value on the string? What's on this one? So basically, what we can do is, for example, we put names, and we put the 0, and see, we have add all. If we have many, and we can actually transform as a map, etc. But we can actually add, and now we can actually add here and this, and they say, for example, I don't know, let's say, for example, Sonia. Okay, so let's say Sonia itself, and now if we just print the names, we can see actually instead of 3 values, we add at the end Sonia. So now, if we want to add, before, you remember number 3 was an error, but now if we put number 3, it's not gonna be out of range. It's gonna say Sonia. Why? Because it's like a 0, 1, 2, and 3. We can add with this value. Now this value is totally, it can be found. It can be found there. Okay. And for example, we can actually put there, and then we can actually, if we can actually clear, we can actually clear everything. And for example, if we put delete, remove. If we can actually remove, we can actually use a remove last. If we can actually remove, here remove last. So what will happen now? So he will check, all the values in the string, and he will go to the last, and we will remove that. So in this case, if I print the name itself, you will see how I say, okay, so now Robert is not accessed. Why? Because they have 3 values, but you say, okay, but I want to remove last. Okay, in this case, you remove last, the value at the end. So you don't need to know the numbers, you don't need to check, the values, that specific thing, and then put the number itself. However, you can actually do so. In this case, for example, I will actually put a dot and put remove, and they say add. Now I say, okay, remove add where? If you can actually see, it actually expects a value. So what is the value? The value is specifically the number. So in this case, I want to remove John. Okay, so now we put 1, say remove value, add 1, and then let's see how. Yeah, so we have David, John, and Robert, but now we remove the number 1, 0, 1, which is John. Okay, so he removed specifically that is, specifically that value. Okay, so there is so many things, and also if you put, if you put clear itself, we'll remove everything, and it will be a let me put a semicolon in the end, and it will be completely clear everything. So it's an array completely empty. Sometimes you want to do this one because you say, okay, so this this array is not value anymore. I need to clear everything and put a new value. So you can actually use clear instead of remove everything one by one and all these things. So now you have clear, prints, names, everything is correct. So this is one of the things to create a kind of a list, arrays, etc. So and now to use maps. And now to use maps itself, you can actually use it with the word map, as you can imagine on this one. Okay, so now the map itself is like, okay, so now we need to add 2 different values. So the first value here is gonna be the key, and the second is the value itself. So in this case, you're gonna put very simple string and string. Okay, and now this one, it will be maps. And now this one it will be maps value. Let's say maps, for example. So let me put the string correctly here, maps. Okay, and now how we can actually declare maps itself. Declare maps, we need to use a curly bracket. Okay, in this one we use brackets, and then here we use curly brackets, to use maps. In this case, that this is a complete empty map. Let me comment this print, and let's put the print down. Okay, so now we put a map. Now we put maps and put the column, and we run it. Okay, so now we can see it's totally empty. So the first value, if we actually put an enter, the first value is going to be string and the second is string. The first one is going to be the name of the variable. Let's say it in this way. Okay, and probably now it doesn't make so much sense if you didn't see a map before, but let me show you in this way. So in this case, the name of the variable, this specific first name, it's gonna be a name itself. Okay, and this name and the second, and the second value. And the second value itself is gonna be David. And I know you use exactly the same, but it's just to make it consistent. Okay, and they put a comma, and then we're going down, and then put the last name. Okay, let's say person. Okay, just to make it more clear. And that's it, last name. Okay, so last name itself, and now we put here Cruz. Okay, and now we put a comma in the end, and now here put age. Okay, age, and now here we actually put a string, and we put 38. Why we put like this? Because like this it doesn't matter if it's a number in the inside, it's still a string. Okay, it's not, there is a 38 is not equals 38. Okay, this is a number, this is a string. All right, so to make it clear, it's not the same. It's not the same thing. All right, so now we're gonna print the person. So if we print the person, what we're gonna see itself. So in this case, we see the map. The map is say David, last name Ruth, and the age is 38. Okay, so but how we can actually access to that one specific value on this one. So in this case, it's more, it's very simple. Before we use the numbers just to see the position, and now we will use the name itself. So now person, we put this one like this, and then we need to put exactly name itself in the middle. Okay, so now we run it, and we can see how we can access to that specific first name like this, and then now we put the last name. We run the last name, and they say Cruz, and now we put the age itself, and we put age. Okay, so that's a good thing. And what happens if we would like to add more values to that one specific map itself? Okay, so as probably you can imagine, it's exactly the same thing. Okay, so in this case, it's not like it's not that simple. Person. Okay, so if we put the dot itself, you can actually add all, and you probably here in Flutter itself, you can actually use add. Okay, like before, and now you can actually add what, that what is not. It's not possible. You say it's complaining about add. It's not there is no add. So how we can actually add specifically? So there is no position before we can actually add. So it's gonna add into the end, but now it doesn't know where it's need to be added. So in this case, we will use specifically the name we want to. And in this case, you say let's put city, for example. Okay. So now city, and in this case city, put equals. And now we can put here London. Okay, club, and a specific thing. All right, so now if we remove person, so the value in the end, and we run it, we will see how David, name is David, last Cruz, age, and we have this new value. It's called London. Okay, so the city is London. So we can actually here if I put city at the end, city, then you can actually see how it will display London as is the value we actually added right after. Okay, so that's it. And to remove it, person, and then remove, and you can actually, there is a remove object for this one, but you can actually remove which object you want to remove, and then you say I want to remove the object, let's say age itself. Okay, so remove age, and then like this, and then if we go and just display the person itself, then magically we will see how this age, which before was at the beginning, is not there anymore. Name, last name, and city. Okay, so basically this is all I would like to show you, about variables and data types, in Flutter. Is it's very simple. I will leave, as I said before, timestamps. I hope this one was very useful for you guys, and please leave me a comment if you like to make this one more clear. Something doesn't make sense, please let me know. If it's something else you would like to see, please leave me a comment, and I will be so happy to help you on your learning development in Dart and Flutter, or for example in Android. Thank you so much, have a good day, and I see you in the next video. Thank you, bye.